the artist within me. I grew up in a family where there was always paper and crayons to draw with, and it was in kindergarten that I suddenly realized how important that was. And I realized it because of something that actually happened the week before I started. We went down to wherever it was people went at that time to buy school supplies. And I became the proud possessor of a box of Crayola crayons. Now you have to understand, as somebody who was not quite 5 at the time, I had never had my very own box of Crayola crayons. I had always had to share them with my older brother and my little sister. The other thing that was really neat about this particular box of Crayola crayons was the box was undamaged. You could put the crayons in it and they really stayed there. And the other thing that was even neater about it was the crayons were undamaged. They weren't broken, the paper wasn't torn off of them. They were brand new. This was neat stuff. You know, maybe there is an artist that is within me. Now, some of you who are my age know you can visualize that box of crayons, and what you know is what I know. That any legitimate, real box of Crayola crayons has how many crayons in it? 8. 8. If you think there was more than 8, you're not old enough. Right? There were 8 crayons in that box. Red, blue, green, yellow, orange, purple, black, and brown. Those are the only legitimate colors for crayons in the world. My older daughter was home this weekend. She shared her birthday with Richard Henry yesterday. She turned 37. In 1981, she went to kindergarten for the first time, discovered the artist within her. When she got her very own box of Crayola crayons that had how many brand new, undamaged, still in the paper crayons in it? 64. And the box actually had a sharpener built into it. Y'all remember that? If you remember that, you're a lot younger than I am, see? Here's the deal. I do not recognize her box of crayons as legitimate. And let me tell you why. Peach is not a color, it's a fruit. Flesh is not a color, it's something God put on your bones to keep you together under the skin. Brick is not a color, it's a building material, for heaven's sakes. There are only 8 crayons, colors in the world, legitimately. Now you could get more than 64, I understand. One of the things that 1981 helped me understand, and what I still struggle with because I still rail about the fact there are only 8 legitimate crayon colors in the world, is that sometimes we have to think outside the box. We have to understand that life changes. And because of the changes in life, we may be confronted with things that are strange or different. We've been talking the last few weeks about service and about living out our vows of service to the church and through the church to God. It's one of the things I think Jesus was trying to help his disciples understand in the story recorded in Mark this morning, with the story of the Syrophoenician woman who comes to Jesus and she says, "My daughter is possessed by an evil spirit and I would like you to heal her." And remember Jesus' response? It is so totally out of character with this man. It's even more out of character than a box of crayons that has 64 of them in it. He says, "You don't feed the children's food to the dogs." What an interesting comment. What he basically said to this woman is, your daughter ain't worth it. She's just a mutt. And God's love and God's healing is only for the children of God. Now, I don't for a minute believe that Jesus believed what he was saying. I think what he was doing was naming what the disciples were thinking. I think what he was doing was naming proclaiming what he understood. Everybody else that was a good Jew standing around was thinking, which was, wait a minute, we're the chosen people. Why should God reach out to serve others? And of course the woman's response is, yeah, maybe the dogs get to eat the crumbs that fall off the table. Come on. And at that point, Jesus takes thinking outside the box, believing that the grace of God is for somebody out there, and turns it into action when he says, you know, if you go home, you'll find out your daughter's been made well. And she does. My world has changed since 1956. And so is yours. One of the things we know is that there are more different ways to serve God than there have ever been before. Increased ability to move from place to place quickly. The new technology that allows us to connect through the internet in a variety of other ways. The opportunities that we have to serve with, are you ready for this? A piece of plastic that means we don't have to wait for the bank to open to get cash to help somebody. Life has changed since 1956. Life has changed since 1981 when my daughter got her box of crayons. Last week we talked about being faithful to our vows of service within the church, within the community of faith, and how might that happen. But let me suggest that what God asks of his church is that we constantly think outside the box. That we constantly look for new ways to serve God out in the world, outside these walls, in ways that we've never done before. That in a sense what we do is we begin to create new colors to color our world with as we serve others. That we look for new ways, undiscovered, that we might serve to the honor and glory of God as we reach out and help others. I don't know what that's going to look like, quite frankly. Because in 1956, I could not have begun to come up with 56 other colors for a box of crayons that would lay to 64 in a box. I could not have been that inventive. But somebody was. And I suspect that the church that takes seriously, we are called to serve God, to serve the church. That's part of who we are out in the world. Is a church that its collective wisdom and the people that are here this morning can say, here's a new way to serve. Here's a new way to reach out and touch somebody's life that God might be honored and glorified. The other thing about the story that we've already mentioned, but which bears note, is that Jesus didn't just ask the disciples to think outside the box. He didn't just force them to confront their own beliefs and say, yeah, maybe that kid could be healed, even though she's not Jewish. But Jesus goes beyond asking the disciples to think outside the box. And he acts outside the box. So as we come to the table this morning, what we're really doing is thanking God for acting outside the box. 2,000 years ago, instituting a meal that would nourish us for a lifetime and for all eternity. Something we couldn't have invented on our best day. But we come to the table asking God's Spirit to live within us, to help us as we live out our membership vows of service. To not only think, but to act outside the box, out in God's world. At some point, and I'm still working on it, folks, we have to move beyond kindergarten to live out our Christianity as adults in the midst of an ever-changing world. Amen. We invite our ushers to come forward now as we